We're doing a little bit of a set change before we go into our second speaker, and actually the subject of sets and set changes is very appropriate, because I think I'm standing on possibly one of the most beautiful stage sets for a conference or talk event that I've ever seen. And we were very privileged at Interdependence this year to be able to take the ethos of Manchester International Festival, which is to commission great artists to do entirely new work, and bring that inside Interdependence, because we talked to the extraordinary artist Lubaina Himid about creating a set for us, a space, a backdrop in which we could explore the ideas of interdependence. And that's what I have the privilege of standing in front of right now. So, as part of that, we very much wanted to invite Lubaina also to be one of our speakers. Many people will know Lubaina's work over many years, but she's particularly been in prominence this year. She is, of course, a Turner Prize-nominated artist, backdrop and context for Interdependence. I'm very, very pleased that she's with us here today to talk about her work. Lubaina.
It is very extraordinary to be in front of a set again after many, many years. Yeah, so it kind of having been invited to produce a backdrop, it awakened all sorts of theatrical ambitions in me. So just to watch some space, if not this space. In a way, I'm the very last person in the world who should be up here in front of you talking about power, because I've absolutely no idea what it means to consciously seek it out and unequivocally use it well. For instance, I spend an inordinate amount of time now thinking, oh, no thank you, and saying, oh, yes, yes please. And I sort of spend almost every day doing the opposite of what I'm thinking and doing things that I know I should do and are a little afraid of doing, but do them anyway. I spent time trying to help other people meet their potential. And although I've been slogging away at it for more than 30 years, not enough has changed. Some of the artists I work with have themselves worked harder than most people I know, but frustratingly, I don't have the power to make a difference to how their ideas are received. I make a lot of work myself, in between talking about it with students or journalists or curators, neighbours, people in the street, people in waiting rooms, academics, and also in between talking to artists about how to think more confidently about their ideas. However, while it's happening, while I'm painting, my paint spreads across the surfaces I've chosen, I think quite seriously about living and dying and how best to do both. And I have choices about both. And this is a powerful feeling, and I think a great privilege. I'd like to read you a letter that I wrote on a train from London to Preston in 2003. Dear Lucy, when I began this project, I was convinced that it was about money. It certainly cost a great deal of money to make. It's true that naming the money is about how the moneyed classes all over Europe have spent their loot, flaunted their power and wealth by using Africans as slaves. The installation shows how this was disguised and glamorized. They looked like servants or were dressed in the clothes of courtiers. They often provided the entertainment just by looking different, and were at their most useful as the greatest conspicuous display of wealth imaginable. As I've said, the original title was Gifts to Kings. I think about money a great deal, as you will know by reading the emails I've sent you, especially in the making of an art project. In the 21st century, it's difficult to make work that will be taken seriously unless you throw serious money at it. Artists need space to make the work, or they need to employ technicians to make the stuff in their workshops. Even plain, old-fashioned materials tend to be expensive if you want the thing to last and be treated with any kind of respect by those dear conservators who hold considerable power in discussions about purchasing for major collections in Britain. Transporting finished art or original materials to the studio, to the workshop, to the gallery, and back again costs money. Photographing your work for publicity purposes costs money. Travelling to do your research all over the country or around the world costs money. Even going to the gallery in which the work is to be shown costs money. Staying in your studio and waiting for the curator to have the time to come to you is pleasurable. But if you do it properly, even that costs money. Warm studio, decent tea and good biscuits are the way to the curator's heart. Finished exhibition pieces need to be stored somewhere, so artists either need a large studio or a large house, or will need to pay for storage on a monthly basis. Or someone needs to buy it all. I thought this installation was about reiterating the facts and highlighting the immense contribution that Africans have made to the economic foundation of Europe. Entire cities have been built and maintained with the wealth created by the trade in tobacco, sugar, and the slaves themselves. Everyone knows that the trade in people only stopped, inasmuch as it did stop, because the profits were no longer there. The strange thing is now that the work is almost finished, it's painted, it stands up, and is photographed, now that the 100 texts are written and the music is being added to them, now that the 100 people are really people, whom I seem to have invented, summoned, written into being and made real, I realize that this work is much more about naming than it is about money. It's an attempt to get to the bottom of the dilemma of losing your name, being relieved of your real identity, being saddled with another more convenient or less embarrassing identity, and how you then have to invent something else, equally real, simply to survive, to make sense of being alive. It is the story of the slave servant, but also of the leper, of the émigré, of the refugee, of the asylum seeker. If it is true, and people are more real in who they are, and therefore more important, when their name and family history is written down, and they've lived in the same place for generations, if this is really what makes you worth something, then this is what I've tried to do here, in this piece, with these people. Each cutout has a name, a real name. Each one is able to say who they really are and what they used to do. Each one lives with their new name and their new occupation, attempting somehow to reconcile the two. Every one of the cutouts in this installation is trying to tell you something. Each has a voice that can be heard on the soundtrack playing in the gallery space, or read on an invoice attached to each back. I thought I was talking to a firm of accountants in order to help them get the books straight, to get them to record the contribution in figures that we from somewhere else made to this place, this wealth. But I was wrong to try and do this. What happened was that gradually I realized that 100 people were talking to me as if I was a records clerk, telling me to write a sort of registry of names as proof that they existed as individual named people with real lives and real identities. I did as I was told. Perhaps I am a records clerk employed by a firm of accountants. All best wishes, Lubaina. My name is Ken Kebe. They call me Sam. I used to shout from hilltops. Now I call the dogs to heel. but I still can sing. My name is Birani. They call me Dan. I used to send messages of war. Now I introduce the speeches, but I have new words. My name is Wachera. They call me Sally. Once I made pots for my family. Now I make tiles for the floor, but I love the clay. My name is Effiong. They call me John. I used to make rings for royal fingers. Now I make shoes for ladies' feet, but I have the gold. My name is Usikulumi. They call me George. I used to sway to the wind. Now it chills my bones, but I have the spring. My name is Zaida. They call me Sissy. I used to make tobacco mortars. Now I make rocking horses, and they have more colour. My name is Akron. They call me Henry. I used to play at weddings. Now I play at funerals, but I have the memory. My name is Gowan. They call me Jack. I used to find rivers. Now I build walls, but I love the bird song. My name is Olushade. They call me Jenny. I used to cure diseases. Now I make the tea, but I am never ill. My name is Nyla. They call me Polly. I used to paint the headdresses. Now I paint their portraits, but I have their thanks. Written on a train from London to Liverpool. Dear Lucy, this is just a short letter to explain to you why I changed my mind, and the show is now 100 life-sized wooden cutouts and not 10 canvas paintings that I said it was going to be. The whole thing developed from an idea I've been grappling with since 40 painted tin plates formed part of a piece called Study for a Monument in 1992. Each plate tumbled off a table painting and represented countless Africans who were once makers, creative, active people, and whose lives were chucked away as they were thrown overboard, surplus to requirement on their way from their home to a life of slavery. The 10 paintings once planned would have retained the original title of Gifts to Kings and have simply replicated the 3 works I saw in the early 1980s in La Rochelle in western France. These were beautifully painted portraits of black people who were given as presents from the King of Spain to the King of France. The fragments of fabric from your collection would have featured more prominently and been painted into their waistcoats, their jackets and their dresses. It would have been neat and tidy, rather beautiful but rather distant. Another country, another time. It just wasn't enough. 100 cutouts have been more interesting to do. As I made the painted and collaged paperworks, I became really excited by the endless possibilities for colour, texture, collage, drawing and text. But by the time I'd made a few dozen actual cutouts, and each decision about the clothes, the objects, the expression on the face of each person I had made was different, the process opened up more opportunities for dialogue between the cutouts themselves, between now and then, between art and politics. The dog trainer, the ceramicist, the painter, the herbalist, the shoemaker, the map maker, the dancing master and the viol de gamba player, the drummer and the toy maker are multiplied by 10. They cluster together. They can stand apart. They think. They talk. They remember. They plan ahead and dream of change. It's true, it was daunting to have 100 blank cutouts all around the studio and filling the house, but they've gradually come to life over the past 10 months. I have had to deal with solving the problem of how to get them to stand up, then the challenge of naming them and writing each one's story. The size of the project and the worry of it went backwards and forwards from being about cash flow and budgets to reputation and skills, and finally was resolved by being able to listen to my many technical advisors and to the cutouts themselves. Now we're in the middle of making the soundtrack. the text, stories, and 80 minutes of music, interplay and interweave. It'll be playing in the gallery and hopefully add another layer to the experience. It's taken hours of discussion, recording, more discussion, and then some technical wizardry. It was like writing and recording a small opera. The voices speaking, the urgency of writing what they said on paper, the way some simply waited their turn, knowing I would get there eventually. Many people have worked on the project so far, apart from the sound advisors. There have been people cutting out, making and designing the stands, delivering them to the workshop and back to the studio. As the autumn came, I had to hand over the whole management of the project so that I could concentrate on the making all the time. Our budget didn't really allow for this, so as usual, my wage packet is stretched to its limit, naming the money indeed. All the research into the textile fragments appears as such a tiny visual now, but the presence in your collection of that partial yet tangible history will be very important to the final installation, perhaps because they will be hard to see. Tin plates multiplied by French paintings, added to Hatton textile fragments, multiplied by a history of cutouts, interspersed with slave narratives, overlaid with favourite music, equals naming the money. The placing and grouping of the cutouts is both clear and vague at the moment. There are groupings I always had in mind, like drummers, dancers, and viol de gamba players being all together in a huge, boisterous, space-taking, loud gathering. I can see the dog trainers dotted about throughout the whole installation, communicating with their animals. The ceramicists and painters have a great deal to say to each other, and the herbalists and ceramicists do too. The ceramicists talk a lot. The shoemakers stand alone, looking at other people. The mat makers stand alone, ruminating about their lives, how hard they work, what might have been. The toy makers are interested in children, but I cannot place them, as there aren't any children. It will have to wait until the dummy run next week. All best wishes, Lubaina. My name is Adan. They call me Sam. I used to walk with my brother, the king. Now I walk with the dogs, but I have them under control. My name is Dumaka. They call me Dan. I used to call for rain. Now I play for dancers, but I have the beat. My name is Zara. They call me Sally. I used to make bowls and paint them. Now I make cups of tea, but the patterns are nice. My name is Anan. They call me John. I used to notice people's hands. Now I soothe their aching feet, but I have my pride. My name is Ilumerica. They call me George. I used to move with the trees. Now I hide amongst them, but I have tomorrow. My name is Tanisha. They call me Sissy. I used to make oars for the fishermen. Now I make boats for dolls, and they work just as well. My name is Wanjohi. They call me Henry. I used to live to play. Now I play to live, but I have an audience. My name is Huatiti. They call me Jack. I used to explore caves. Now I dig tunnels, but I have the earth. My name is Ngosa. They call me Jenny. I used to know the names of flowers, but these are new. I'll learn them soon. My name is Melia Petsani. They call me Polly. I used to paint the effigies. Now I scrub the headstones, but I have the sunlight. My name is Siti Tenlani. They call me Sam. I used to live with my family. Now my family lives apart, but I have the dogs. My name is Ashron. They call me Dan. I used to lead the ceremonies, but now I lead the band. but I have my drums. My name is Wiweru, they call me Sally. I used to dream about shapes, now I lie awake and watch the moon. My name is Marungu, they call me John. I used to oil my skin, now I skin the goats for shoes, but I have my perfumes. My name is Sanfu, they call me George. I used to dance for a reason. Now I try to tell them how. I have my faith. My name is Anika. They call me Sissy. I used to make boxes for jewels. Now I make boxes for children, but at least they are used. My name is Wegwani. They call me Henry. I used to play another instrument. Now I have mastered this, and I have my friends. My name is Okun. They call me Jack. I used to measure lakes. Now I build jetties, but I have the sunset. My name is Mandisa. They call me Jenny. I helped a man get well, but his brother sold me. I still know the cure. My name is Penda. They call me Polly. I used to paint the shields. Now I wash the floors, but I have the patterns. And if you were to offer me a superpower, it would be to hurry some things up and slow other things right down. Thank you. Do some talking. We do some talking.
Would you like to?
Yeah, if you want to talk, yeah.
Great.
If there's time.
So we're going to make time, Lubaina, because that was just really beautiful. That was a speech as a work of art in its own right. And it did make me think, actually, as you were talking through the histories of the cutout figures and those beautiful voices that you gave them. Very much of Sonia Hughes' work on What is the City last Thursday, sort of distilling down the essence, really, of people's unique individuality and then creating an extraordinary stage for it. So really beautiful conversation there between artists. We will be moving on quite soon to our next session this morning, which is to look at the relationship between digital arts and power. But I think we should give a moment to, I want to, for people to ask questions of Lubaina, because that was such a powerful and moving presentation. So we'll take 2 questions.
Oh, that's all right.
No, I saw, there we go.
Thanks, Lubaina. That was really, really poignant and poetic. And I've known your work for a long time. I just wonder how, knowing what you know today, how would you see the politics of art that you've kind of been through in the last, since the 70s I've known about your work, kind of thing. How do you see the kind of power of art within this society, which is very oversaturated with media, images, points of view, sort of information overload, really. You know, I kind of see your work as very political and very activist, but you speak very, this was very poetic and very kind of different to an activist kind of thing. But I kind of wonder how you equate the activism in your work and the politics in your work.
Well, I suppose, it's the only way I can do it. I think for myself, I've always wanted to interact with an audience. I wanted the work to interact with an audience. So the point of the work very often is to bring the audience very, very close to the work, either because there are a huge amount of colours or there is something about the way it looks that people will come into the next room where the work is, or find themselves walking amongst it, or come closer to it. And then for the audience to bring their own stories to that work and bring it to I've brought all my stories and all my complicated life to the work as well. And then there's hopefully some kind of interaction across the work itself. I think I find that if people are shouting at me and telling me what to do, whether it's, shouting at me, telling me what to do, and I'm nearly 63 now, and people still do try and tell me what to do and shout at me, and it makes me slow down, and it makes me get off the, moving escalator and not act. The whole purpose of my work is that people come with their story, and I listen to them through the work, and they listen to me through the work, and then you leave the space that you're in, you actually then go and do something. But it's because we've had this conversation where your life maps onto mine, where there are overlaps, where there are places where you can see that even if you were absolutely not in the cotton fields in South Carolina, there are ways also that you can understand that, or things that you've had to do that were against everything that was you. And even if your life only overlaps or a tiny little bit, there's a place there for you to have that conversation and go out and act. The activism is about us doing whatever small thing we can. And I think over those years, many, many of us artists have done many, many small things, and that has developed into something that seems to be shifting the thinking, at least.
And a question right at the back.
You've always been a good artist, but now you're a slightly more famous artist because of the Turner Prize nomination. And I wondered if being more famous makes you more powerful, or whether it's does something else to you.
Well, I am famous in the place where I live, which is just down the road in Preston. And it is true that I can't go into the supermarket without somebody saying, "Oh, I hope you do okay," and we're rooting for you. And I can't go into a hospital waiting room without that happening to me, and I can't stand at the station without that happening to me. But like all good movie stars say, it doesn't make any difference for the rest of my life, No, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, you say I'm more famous, but, there are some men in suits who in the last 3 weeks have said to me, "We'd really like to do something for you, what would you like?" And I have asked for some audacious things. So we'll see in the next... And I haven't made any false promises to getting them into the Turner Prize dinner or anything like that. Really, I haven't. But we'll see as time goes by. I have attempted to use it in some ways, but I haven't seen the result yet. Ask me in a few months.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Ask for audacious things. Lubaina Himid, it's a real honour to have you here and to have your beautiful work.
Great, well, thanks very much. I love how it looks. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.